Leisure time. Did you ever stop to think how much leisure time you really have? Some of us put our leisure time to good use. And some of us, Ken Michaels, for example, spend most of our leisure time just moping.
Moping? He thinks I'm moping. Well, who wouldn't mope? There's nothing to do, nobody's around. You know how it is. I went down to the bowling alley, went over to the drugstore. None of the gang was there. All my friends are busy, so what's for me to do?
Do you suppose Ken has more leisure time than his friends do?
Huh? Well, no, I don't have more time. We all spend about the same amount of time in school, and the rest is leisure time. I've got nothing to do but wait for supper. My friends have more things to do. They're lucky.
Ken's pretty lucky, too.
Listen to that. All right, I'll bite. Why am I lucky?
Because you have so much leisure time. Time in which you can do things you enjoy. Time in which you don't have to work.
Like this, huh? Is that good?
Let me show you a few things.
I'm
Suppose you had lived 100 years ago.
But,
what would you have been like?
I'm eating oats right now.
Take a look.
I'm going to
Where?
have myself muted. Until
Oh, is that me? Is that what I would have looked like 100 years ago?
Well, perhaps. But now, well, let's look back 100 years again and see someone else.
Who? Hey, that's my dad.
Young man, you get off that bed and get to work. After you clean out the stable, you can build some new steps for the back porch. While I work 72 hours a week, no son of mine is going to loaf.
72 hours?
12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Tomorrow morning, young man, you're going out to get a regular job. You can work too, and earn your keep.
Not so good, Ken? Well, let's try another picture. Say about 50 years ago.
Oh, hello, son. Well, say, I've got some new pictures for the stereoscope. We'll look at them tonight. Don't forget about your chores. Have them all done by the time I'm through work. And keep the wood box full.
Boy, how long will you work, Dad?
Why, 10 hours. 10 hours a day, every day except Sunday.
60 hours a week? Boy.
Well, Ken, let's take a look at your father's time as it really is today.
Hi, Dad. You sure don't work as long hours as they used to.
That's right, Ken. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do so much work in so little time. This 40-hour week suits me fine. And some people even work shorter hours nowadays. But by the way, Ken, how'd you like to play a quick round of golf before supper? I think we can work it in. And then later I'd like to shellac that new bookcase I'm making.
Well, Ken?
Yes, Dad does enjoy his leisure time. And to think that a few years ago, people didn't have nearly so much time to themselves.
Yes, we've gained a lot of leisure time in the last century or so. All of us.
Wait a minute. All of us? Mother should hear you say that. She's always complaining that she doesn't have enough time.
Well, let's see about that. Can you picture your mother?
Oh. I have it start on like a... Oh. Hello, everyone. Is your story a novel? That's a question I will answer short. It's a short story. It's not very short. I thought it was like a few pages. As I flipped over it. Did I get the wrong copy? Oh god. No, please don't. Please tell me I didn't get the wrong copy. It was about like 10 pages when I clicked into it. And towards the end of it, there's like a copyright notice. So this should be the right copy. And it should be, I don't know. But Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're reading today. Very quickly. It shouldn't take too long. It should be an hour. Audiobook's only 49 minutes? Right, okay then. There's an audiobook. So yeah, there's among other things, there's an audiobook by the writer. Harlan Ellison. I believe he does an audiobook. He also is part of a short radio play, among other things. It's a short story, but it's nothing too concerning or nothing to worry about. Very easy load. All right, everyone. But I felt it. I didn't want to. I know I didn't announce this quite so, and I did not at all imply I would be doing this until 30 minutes ago when I scheduled the stream, but I did want to read some horror, and I thought it best to read it earlier rather than later. And not, have it sort of interrupted by whatever other plan I have. It was short enough to read on stream, probably a good length of stream. That's what I was thinking, yeah. Sorry, I'm muttering. I need to get out of that bad habit. Read, enunciate the I said, yeah, originally I wanted to read it part of October. I didn't. I've come back now, decided, what, I still want to read it. So I'm gonna do it, fuck it. I'm sure it's relevant enough outside of spooky horror season that it's still perhaps worth pursuing for me, for myself at least. I've always seen references to this work, variations of the title of the phrase, "I've no mouth and I must scream." Always wondered what it was, and I always heard about the themes and what it's about, and it was always really interesting to me. Now I finally get the chance to read it. I have a reason to read it, I suppose. It's the other way. Because trust me, if I don't have a reason to do something, I will not do it. Just reading about the Grantic War here for work. Oh, please continue reading. Reading is good. Out class theory and practice of ethnology. Interesting. Glad to know everyone's going on in different parts of their day. By the way, it's nice, very nice to see the fan art randomly there. Looks like a stamp, kind of. I think it does. So the idea is, right? Here's the idea. I want to eventually hang the chat room full of portraits of myself to showcase the fan art. I just think it would be very appropriate for me to have a room, to have the main room where I talk to people be filled with portraits of myself. So that's the idea, is I just have it hanging on a bench. Made grilled cheese for well, because you do have a mouth. I just finished having oats. I had berry oats. So that's what my mouth is for. Love the way Harlan writes about hate and hunger there. I haven't read anything from Harlan either. We're gonna dive a little bit into the Wikipedia before. This is a thing. Nicole, please refrain from weird comments. Alright, I don't want to ban you. I don't want to ban anyone. Everyone, this applies to everyone, but this is just me seeing it, right? Okay, don't put any weird comments. All right, please say things that I would say, maybe, or don't say anything I wouldn't say. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Do things that I would do, but there's also a little gray area where it's not something I quite would do, but it's not something I wouldn't do. You're allowed to do those things as well. I know sometimes this comes off as a bit of a chat room for everyone. I'm glad that there's a certain comfort and atmosphere in this. I think that is pretty cool, but I hope that it doesn't devolve into a chat room. I hope that, generally when people say things here, it's sort of relevant to what I'm doing. I don't want to enforce it because I don't have the energy to do that. I'm too old. I'm 60 years young, all right? I don't have the energy to enforce it, but I would like ideally for things to, you know, sort of stay on topic. And this isn't a hard rule. But remember, and I think rules can be broken, but I think if you want to break a rule, you must do so tastefully. You must do so artfully. You must do so with technique and skill, with intent. You know, you must be doing something when you break a rule that could only be done by breaking the rule and serves a value that previously was inconceivable, right? That's my rule for rule breaking. There's no rules, but if there was, don't be weird. And if you want to break the rule, if you want to break the rule, you can. You got to make it count, okay? That's my rule for breaking rules. Anyways. Basically said if you're gonna be horny on main, do it tastefully. I'm not saying do it. I'm saying if you're doing anything. I don't know. Anyways, this isn't to, you know, I don't want to censor anyone. I just don't think that's the way to go. But I do want to see a higher standing of quality. All right, thank you. don't one rule one, don't be freaky too. If you do, be impressively freaky, be interestingly. Don't, like, you know, yeah, there has to be some sort of provocation of thought in it, right? If not, then you can keep it to yourself. It's all fine. I'm not going to ban anyone yet. It's not reached that point, or like time anyone out, or do anything really like to enforce it. But, you know, as far as I'm concerned, the reason why people say weird things in streams, I've been looking into it, watching other people's streams, right? But the reason why people say weird things on streams is because they want to kind of catch the attention of the streamer. Because that's the whole thing, right? You're battling for attention for like this person who's monopolized the attention because they're like the one hosting the live stream. The problem, or rather the thing with that for me is I have, like, there's nobody else in the chat room. You can say anything and you'll have my attention. So why say something, you know, provocative just for the sake of being provocative, though, rather than say something that you truly mean, that is insightful or perhaps, you know, humorous, instead of, you know, just saying some things that are perhaps out of line or strange. But, you know, you will have my attention either way. Please make it so that it's something you actually want me to be observing, right? I think that'd be good. Anyways. Enjoying the live today. The essay I have to write is about how Paraguay is fucked up because of generational trauma. Ah, okay. Good luck with that. That mostly does because it gets you to falter from character a little bit and it's funny. I understand it, and I see the dynamic. I'm willing to play into the comedy. The problem is it does get kind of tiring if it's repeatedly, you know, that. And so what tends to happen, or rather what I will eventually do, and I don't want to have to, I want to say it before I do it, right? I'm going to start ignoring comments that are just not very, you know, that I want to make sure to let you know that if I ignore something, it's not necessarily because I think it's not worth responding to. Sometimes I just don't see it. But sometimes I ignore something intentionally, and there's no way for you to tell if I'm ignoring something intentionally or if I'm ignoring it because there's just so much to read or perhaps things going on in my head, you know? There's just, that's a little difficult. So I'm working on that. Do hate humanity for certain reasons. You see, stop, don't say your age. Don't say your age on the internet, all right? This is practice for you, all right? This is practice for you. Don't give out your personal information on the internet. Please, people will take advantage of that. And for any purposes, you know, whether to make fun of you or, you know, anything else, you know. Also, you know, it's just a hassle for everyone. Your anonymity on the internet is your strongest power. Please retain it. Thank you. Goodness. I have to repeat myself because it's not common sense, it turns out, unless you're just terribly anxious about everything. just naturally, like I am. Some people, you know, are not that, and they feel comfortable doing that. I can't imagine, but please don't do it. I think even grown-ups shouldn't be developing these kind of parasocial. No one should be. That's just not good. It's just not good. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's not real. You're welcome to indulge in fantasy, but you have to understand that it's fantasy. That's, I suppose, is the thing. If you indulge into fantasy not knowing that's the case, then you are being bamboozled. Not very good. Last essay I wrote was the intermingling of sex and violence in female-driven horror movies. I get it can be done tastefully if I ever say something super. Okay. Interesting. I don't want to. No one's like, you know. It's not that serious. It's a live stream. I'm a VTuber. It's not that serious, but I do want to say in the future, if I ignore you, that there is a possibility that the reason I'm ignoring the comment is because I've seen it, but I just don't think it's worth responding to. And I don't mean as in like, you know, you are not worth responding to it. I just mean that what you wrote was not your best work. And you should go and sharpen it and polish it, perhaps. That's what I mean when I say that it's not your best work. Gotta go in a few minutes, so you're getting like freak out. Okay, well, don't do that in this live stream. You can come say hi. You could talk about your day. That's fine. But don't get your freak out, please. But goodbye. Have a good day. Good luck on the exam. Guys, the audience is very small, so it's hard to maintain boundaries without fear of alienating any of your regulars. We have to make you uncomfortable. No, that's fine. No, nothing is. There's never been an amount of discomfort in the entire few months, almost 6 months. Holy shit, 5 months. I've been born as Karasufrenor. Nothing has made me as uncomfortable enough for me to be like, oh, this is not good. It's always like a mild amount of discomfort that ends up being an interesting experience. The most uncomfortable I've ever been on stream is probably playing Class of '09. I think it was the second game when I was streaming the first game, there were some people that were here and talking, like 1 or 2 more than usual, and I was like, okay, cool. And then when I was streaming the second game, I saw like 20 concurrent, and then a bunch of comments from people I've never seen before telling me about the game, and I'm like, oh god, I have to play the game right. If I play the game wrong, like, these people are gonna be very upset. In fact, one of the things that's still in my mind right now is like a few streams ago, my last Half-Life 2 stream, I think, someone commented on the VOD, not live. It was on a comment on the VOD days later. So this person went through the VOD watching me play the game, and this person went, dude, you really got to pay attention to the story. And that made me uncomfortable, but not in a way that's like, you know, screw you for putting the comment. No. That was it's a fine comment. It just made me realize, I'm like, oh god, people are watching. And they're you know, I imagine they're crossing their arms, just standing beside me, above me, like staring at the monitor, going like, you're not doing that right. And I go, fuck, okay, I'm sorry, I'm gonna do it right. Ah. Anyways, that's the kind of thing that makes me uncomfortable. Crass humor, lewd jokes, this type of thing is like, it's common in the VTuber sphere. So if it was the type of thing that would bother me enough to actually be uncomfortable, then I wouldn't be a VTuber. Or rather, I would do some other things for an outlet like this without encroaching into this realm quite so brazenly, if I must. I can't believe I still have stage fright. I've done theater for years. I mean, okay, well, yeah, I can't believe I have stage fright. Might as well share it now. I used to I've had... Okay, do I tell this now? God. This isn't the right time. This is like a reading stream. This has nothing to do with Hello, Shells. Hello, welcome to the stream. It's okay. Germa985 was also a theater kid. He's described as the theater kid for Twitch streamers. So, happy to catch a stream. Harris here from your bell hooks video. Oh, well, hello, welcome. More reading today. Interesting recent development, or not development, but recent thing I thought about from bell hooks was one of a senior librarian I was sort of observing and taking notes from. A senior librarian I've just newly gone into a class to. He is an outspoken critic of feminist philosophy, which I found very interesting. Particularly bell hooks work. He thinks intersectionality is totally wrong, and he has like the dialectics to back it up. I thought that was interesting. I don't think I agree with him, but I think but I do think his critique is an interesting and perhaps valid critique. Hello, D. Benson. Hello, welcome. You're here from literature, not video games. I have like, there's a weird overlap of regulars, but then there's largely two circles of people who want to watch me read stuff and people who want to watch me play games. I don't know what to do about that. I don't know how to cultivate this sort of coming together of it. Oh, the streams on this channel mostly focus on reading books or essays. Not quite, but I just read sometimes on stream. Like every 3-4 streams, I'll be reading something, and the reading isn't going to go away. I'm just wondering how the rest of it will increase. There are other VTubers out there who read more probably, or read different things, but I think I've carved my niche out as someone who is willing to read and engage with philosophy, because not that many people do that. But I've also been branching out to other parts because, you know, there's no point in just staying in one, as the saying goes. TTRPGs are about as little less time consuming as theater, much less people in the audience. Right. But anyways, yeah. So just to wrap up the point, if you want to be weird, or as the kids say, be freaky in chat, don't try not to, or like, you know, tone it down, or, you know, do it artfully, do it tastefully. One more thing I said that I couldn't say before someone left just now, but if you come back to the VOD and watch this part, save, this is a request, this is a formal request from me, everyone here, save your freakiness for February, okay? I'm gonna say it now, and I'm gonna say it again maybe in, you know, the next few streams. I'll mention it from time to time, but this is the first time I'm saying it because I think I've got it locked in. Save your freakiness for February, okay? There's a project, there's a sort of idea I have for February, and I want everyone to work with me on this. Don't be freaky now, because you should channel all of that energy into February. You will know why when it happens, but for now, you just have to trust me, okay? And if you're too freaky now, you know, then the effect doesn't quite work. It's a collaborative sort of project. But that's just for February, okay? And when it's February, I'm making the promise now, no inhibitors. Say whatever you want. I'll even entertain it. But you will see why. You will see why. Philosophy reading is peak. Is there a way to vote for what your next reading is going to be? Thank you. Is there a way to vote? Generally, not really. Generally, I pick what I read based on the sort of thematic, and I try to theme that week around that thing that I'm reading. So for example, this stream, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, is a reading stream I'm going to do. Well, I was going to do for Halloween season, because it's a horror reading. It also has philosophical overlap though that I found that I thought would be interesting. I haven't read it yet. Like on my Patreon or something. I don't have a Patreon. I've got like 300 subscribers. I'm not a real VTuber as far as most people are concerned. But in the future maybe. For now I just decide what I want to read. If you want to suggest something, you can just come and say it, right? Because who else is gonna be here, right? If you say it, I'll see it and it'll float in my head and then we'll do it. Cameron, were you in acting, focus in theater, or singing, dancing, or were you stagehand? Do I say it? Okay. Here's some lore. All right. Here's some lore. Take it away. Hide it. Put it in a little tin can, and just bury it. Okay. But this is just a little bit of lore. This isn't gonna dox me, right? This is not. There's no way. There's no way this doxes me. For high school, I played Demetrius from A Midsummer Night's Dream. But it was not only a Shakespearean play, it was also a musical. And because Demetrius is one of the lead characters, I had to sing all the songs as well. I'm not gonna say what the songs were because maybe that goes into doxing territory. I don't know. That's it. You get no more. That's all you get. All right. Freaky month. Yeah, that's happening. Oiling up in February. Okay, that's not happening. That is not happening. I'm not oiling up. February, the month of my birthday. Everyone's birthday's in February. What's going on? Okay, whatever. My birthday's on the 8th of June. That's when I was born, like 5 months ago. Anyways, I'm currently 5 months old, if you can believe it. Or 60. Take whichever one you like. You're a real VTuber in our hearts. Thank you. That's all I'll be. You appreciate followers proposing essays or authors? Of course. If you can, if you have ideas or suggestions, please. Shoot out a few at a time, and then I'll float them in my head. Perhaps just shoot out the ones, pick one or two favorite ones, and then insist on it every few streams. I'll come around to it. Wanting to read this, glad to catch a stream. Me too. I've been wanting to read this as well. Interesting. Okay. We're approaching Valentine's Day. We're not approaching it. It's like 3 months away. But who's counting on the 11th of November? Who's counting on the 11th of November? No one's counting. No one's bitter at all. No. So, happy coincidence. You're gonna see a good friend. Cool. Alright. We'll see an active focus is never cast in any singing roles. Interesting. Lady Catherine in Pride and Prejudice. Oh. Maid of Hearts and a stage play. Oh. The announcer in a play, and I think some guy in one of the ancient Greek plays. Some guy. Yeah, probably like the chorus, I think is what they're called in like Greek tragedies or Greek comedies. Yeah. Counting his beauties in February. Okay, I understand that. Anyways. No more. Alright. That's all for is there anything else I wanted to say? I completely veered off track, giving people lore. Anything I wanted to talk about? No, not really. I'm thinking about, and I still haven't decided. I'm thinking of doing a karaoke stream on Wednesday, and I mainly want to sing. It's just practice more than anything because I'm terrible. I haven't sang in, like, I haven't practiced singing. I've belted out notes, but I haven't practiced singing in a long time. So I want to do a karaoke practice on Wednesday, and I want to do it on some of the soundtrack from Arcane, the animated series. But I'm not sure how that works logistically. I don't know how to set it up yet. So maybe I won't do it. But if I do, It'll probably be on Wednesday, sometime like this time or perhaps a little earlier. But if I don't do it, know that it's because I have my voice is a little rusty, and also because I'm a little sick, just a little bit. Fertility festival in your countries on June. I didn't know there was a. Oh, interesting. I was. Never mind. Oh, I almost for a second talked about my actual birthday. Never mind. No more. We're getting out of here. Before I slip. We're getting out of here before I slip. Okay. What did I want to do? This is what I want. Yes. Okay. There's a Japanese karaoke app you upload to and you have a very small following. There's a Japanese karaoke app that you upload to? Like, that's a thing. Huh. Karaoke app. Okay. What are we doing? This is what we're doing. Everyone who actually came for the stream, here's the stream. But first, just brief background for you and for me, right? It's good to know roughly what's going on around it before we read something generally, right? So this is a short story by Harlan Ellison. I have no mouth and I must scream. Harlan Ellison is an American writer. You see it if I click here? Yes, you do. Okay. He's kind of a rebel. New wave is speculative fiction. He's prolific and influential work in. No idea what that means. I'm not well read enough to. Well, I have some idea, but I'm not confident enough to give an explanation beyond just looking at the Wikipedia page. So that's just there, okay? But he definitely, the type of thing that I have no mouth and I must scream is very much in line with what he does and worked with. But I forgot what I was gonna say. He's like a renowned author. He's got several things, and this is his most famous work. It's quite short. The most interesting thing, I forget where it was. He wrote it in one night, I believe. Largely, he didn't change it. He wrote the story. Yes, there we go. Written in one night in 1966. 1966 is how many years ago is that? That is 58 years ago. In one night, Harlan Ellison wrote I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, the narrative of which was minimally altered upon submission, not much editing, and it talks about themes of technological misuse, humanity's resilience, and existential horror. Fascinating, interesting, seems quite like the type of thing that is a prevailing theme in some of the games, for example, I enjoy, like Portal, is the way I imagined it. Imagine it before I go into it, right? Is what I'm anchoring it towards. And because of this, I have always wanted to read it. But as I am, as a terrible person, I just can't seem to do things like read something. Like I'll have a reading list and I will never get to it unless someone is just on my ass to do it. So me streaming this is going to help me, and it's going to help you maybe finally get a chance to read it as well. Right, there we go. Published Galaxy Publishing Corps in March 1967. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's the background information. That's all we needed to know. And now, does it work? Does it work? Do you see it? Can you read it? I cover some of the text. That's no good. Okay. Wait. This is not good. Hang on. Hang on. Sorry, 1 second. Is this bloody... There we go. There we go. Do I put myself in the middle? What if I... No, I'm not going to. I think my OBS is crashing. Okay, I'm just gonna... Okay, I'm still on the stream, right? Everyone tell me if I'm on the stream. Oh gods. Okay. No, it's fine. It's fine. My OBS crashed, I think. Okay, I think it's... Or it's about to crash. Okay. No, 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 it's fine. 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 Oh. I have no hope in my I must stream. Alright. Alright. Okay. As we begin, before we do, I'm wondering if I should pick a different soundtrack. Maybe. To read to this with. Because I'm not sure if the usual stream music of lo-fi superliminal OST is gonna work. But I'm not sure what else to do. Cyberpunk. Hold on. YouTube.com. Cyberpunk. Copyright. No copyright music. There we go. No, I think that's way too tech. Go on. Just a rain atmosphere. Industrial music. Industrial music. An hour of dark techno. 2 hours of cyberpunk dark synth mid-tempo mix. Enigma. Okay, that's a little... Actually, could that work? Never read this book, but heard good things about it, so I'm excited. Me too. Me too. How do I? Dark techno. No. No. Hold on. Moody. Dance mix. No, I'm not dancing to this. I'm reading to it. You know what? I don't think this is a good idea. I think I'm just gonna... I'm gonna do rain. I'm just gonna do classic rainwater. Rainwater. Or not rainwater, raindrops. No, that's the song. Ah! Rain sounds. There's a cyberpunk ambient for rainy night walks. Cyberpunk ambient rainy night walk. Guys, would you be allowed to stream an audiobook via YouTube? Would I be allowed to stream an audiobook on my stream? I don't know. Good question. Depends on the copyright status of that audiobook specifically, I think. See if this works. Why is there a most to be played here? This is a terribly unorganized start. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. You know what? I think this works, right? This is fine. But Electro Tango, maybe not. Okay, okay. This is good. And if it's not good, complain to me. Otherwise, I think it's good. Alright. Sorry. Sorry, I haven't done a reading stream in a while, I'm sorry. Okay. I've no mouth and I must scream, by Harlan Ellison. Limp, the body of Gorister hung from the pink pallet, unsupported, hanging high above us in the computer chamber, and it did not shiver in the chill, oily breeze that blew eternally through the main cavern. The body hung head down, attached to the underside of the pallet by the sole of its right foot. It had been drained of blood through a precise incision made from ear to ear under the lantern jaw. There was no blood on the reflective surface of the metal floor. When Gorister joined our group and looked up at himself, it was already too late for us to realize that once again, AM had duped us and had had its fun. It had been a diversion on the part of the machine. Three of us had vomited, turning away from one another in a reflex as ancient as the nausea that had produced it. Gorister went white. It was almost as though he had seen a voodoo icon and was afraid of the future. "Oh God," he mumbled and walked away. The three of us followed him after a time and found him sitting with his back to one of the smaller chittering banks, his head in his hands. Ellen knelt down beside him and stroked his hair. He didn't move, but his voice came out of his covered face quite clearly. "Why doesn't it just do us in and get it over with? Christ, I don't know how much longer I can go on like this." It was our 109th year in the computer. He was speaking for all of us. Let me get rid of... Oh, get him out of here. Okay. How much do you see again? You see up to the bottom of the screen. Okay, good. Nimdoc, which was the name that the machine had forced him to use because AM amused itself with strange sounds. Nimdoc, that is quite a strange sound, was hallucinating that there were canned goods in the ice caverns. Gorister and I were very dubious. "It's another shuck," I told them, like the goddamn frozen elephant AM sold us. Benny almost went out of his mind over that one. We'll hike all that way and it'll be putrefied or some damn thing. I say forget it. Stay here, it'll have to come up with something pretty soon or we'll die. Benny shrugged. 3 days it had been since we'd last eaten worms. Thick, ropey. Nimdoc was no more certain. He knew there was the chance, but he was getting thin. It couldn't be any worse there than here. Colder, but that didn't matter much. Hot, cold hail, lava, boils, or locusts, it never mattered. The machine masturbated, and we had to take it or die. Ellen decided us. "I've got to have something, Ted. Maybe there'll be some Bartlett pears or peaches. Please, Ted, let's try it." I gave in easily. What the hell? Mattered not at all. Ellen was grateful, though. She took me twice out of turn. Even that had ceased to matter, and she never came, so why bother? But the machine giggled every time we did it. Loud up there, back there, all around us, he snickered. It snickered. Most of the time I thought of AM as it, without a soul, but the rest of the time I thought of it as him, in the masculine, the paternal, the patriarchal, for he is a jealous people. Him, it, God as Daddy the Deranged. We left on a Thursday. The machine always kept us up to date on the date. The passage of time was important, not to us, sure as hell, but to him, it, AM. Thursday. Thanks. Nimdoc and Gorister carried Ellen for a while, their hands locked to their own in each other's wrists, a seat. Benny and I walked before and after, just to make sure that if anything happened, it would catch one of us, and at least Ellen would be safe. Fat chance safe. Didn't matter, it was only 100 miles or so to the ice caverns, and the second day, when we were lying out under the blistering sun, he had materialized. He sent down some manna. Tasted like boiled boar urine. We ate it. On the third day, we passed through a valley of opulence. filled with rusting carcasses of ancient computer banks. AM had been as ruthless with its own life as with ours. It was a mark of his personality. It strove for perfection. Whether it was a matter of killing off unproductive elements in his own world-filling bulk, or perfecting methods for torturing us, AM was as thorough as those who had invented him, now long since gone to dust, could have ever hoped. There was a light filtering down from the above, and we realized was... Okay, that's very annoying. So sorry. There's something with the website that I'm going to... Excuse me. I'm going to try to fix this right now. Okay. I think it should be working. My apologies. No. Okay, well. I'm sorry. One moment. This is terrible. This is terrible. This is what I get for reading something online for free instead of purchasing a copy. I'm sorry. This is the worst thing to happen to me today. This. Alright. Alright. There was light filtering down from above, and we realized we must be very near the surface. I wonder if, yeah, I think Internet Archive is down. That's why I couldn't find anything. We didn't try to crawl up to see. There was virtually nothing out there. Had been nothing that could be considered anything for over 100 years. Only the blasted skin of what had once been the home of billions. Now there were only 5 of us down here inside, alone with AM. I heard Ellen saying frantically, "No, Benny, don't come on, Benny, don't please." And then I realized I had been hearing Benny murmuring, under his breath, for several minutes. He was saying, "I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna get out," over and over. His monkey-like face was crumpled up in an expression of beatific delight and sadness, all at the same time. The radiation scars AM had given him during the festival were drawn down into a mass of pink-white puckerings, and his features seemed to work independently of one another. Perhaps Benny was the luckiest of the 5 of us. He had gone stark, staring mad many years before. But even though we could call AM any damned thing we'd like, we'd think the foulest thoughts of fused memory banks and corroded base plates, of burnt-out circuits and shattered control bubbles, the machine would not tolerate our trying to escape. Benny leaped away from me as I made a grab for him. He scrambled up the face of a smaller memory cube, tilted on its side and filled with rotted components. He squatted there for a moment, looking like the chimpanzee AM had intended him to resemble. Then he leaped high, caught a trailing beam of pitted and corroded metal and went up it, hand over hand like an animal, till he was on a girdered ledge 20 feet above us. "Oh, Ted, Nimdoc, please, help him, get him down before..." She cut off. Tears began to stand in her eyes. She moved her hands aimlessly. It was too late. None of us wanted to be near him when whatever was going to happen, happened. And besides, we all saw through her concern. When AM had altered Benny during the machine's utterly irrational hysterical phase, it was not merely Benny's face the computer had made like a giant ape's. He was big in the privates. She loved that. She serviced us as a matter of course, but she loved it from him. Oh, Ellen. Pedestal Ellen. Pedestal Ellen. Pristine pure Ellen. Oh, Ellen the clean. Scum filth. Gorrister slapped her. She slumped down, staring up at poor loony Benny, and she cried. It was her big defense, crying. We had gotten used to it 75 years earlier. Gorrister kicked her in the side, and the sound began. It was light, that sound, half sound and half light, something that began to glow from Benny's eyes and pulse with growing loudness. Dim sonorities that grew more gigantic and brighter as the light sound increased in tempo. It must have been painful, and the pain must have been increasing with the boldness of the light. the rising volume of the sound, for Benny began to mew like a wounded animal. At first softly when the light was dim and the sound was muted, then louder as his shoulders hunched together, his back humped as though he was trying to get away from it. His hands folded across his chest like a chipmunk's, his head tilted to the side. The sad little monkey face pinched in anguish. Then he began to howl, as the sound coming from his eyes grew louder, louder and louder. I slapped the sides of my head with my hands, but I couldn't shut it out. It cut through easily. The pain shivered through my flesh like tinfoil on a tooth, and Benny was suddenly pulled erect. On the girder he stood up, jerked to his feet like a puppet. The light was now pulsing out of his eyes in two great round beams. The sound crawled up and up, some incomprehensible scale, and then he fell forward, straight down, and hit the plate steel floor with a crash. He lay there jerking spastically as the light flowed around him, and the sound spiraled up out of normal range. Then the light beat its way back inside his head, the sound spiraled down, and he was left lying there, crying piteously. His eyes were too soft, moist pools of pus-like jelly. AM had blinded him. Gorrister, Nimdok, and myself, we turned away. But not before we caught the look of relief on Ellen's warm, concerned face. Sea green light suffused the cavern where we made camp. AM provided punk and we burned it, sitting huddled around the wan and pathetic fire, telling stories to keep Benny from crying in his permanent night. What does AM mean? Gorrister answered him. We had done this sequence 1,000 times before, but it was Benny's favorite story. At first it meant Allied Master Computer, and then it meant Adaptive Manipulator, and later on it developed sentience and linked itself up, and they called it an aggressive menace. But by then it was too late, and finally it called itself AM, emerging intelligence, and what it meant was I am. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Side note here. Good, okay, that's one of the things. Side note here quickly, cogito ergo sum, Cartesian skepticism. Those of you might be familiar if you've watched some of my other streams, where I talk about it briefly, but essentially cogito ergo sum is just, or translated as I think therefore I am, just is the natural, the conclusion that Descartes comes to when he speculates or doubts that anything is real, when he thinks that, what if I was in a dream right now? You know, Matrix type thing. You know, if you're dreaming or you're hallucinating, anything around you that you can observe, touch, feel, whatever, your senses, they're unreliable, it's empirical, right? So, you know, what do we know for sure? And Descartes' answer, coming from this, is the only thing we can know for sure. Perhaps we should branch our understandings of the world from this, is that I exist, or you exist, you know, the person thinking, I exist because something has to exist to do the thinking. Something has to exist to think and to ponder and to doubt and to wonder if they are dreaming at all. In order for that to happen, something, a self must exist. And that is René Descartes' idea of I think, therefore I am. Even in the greatest doubts and suspicions, we know for sure. I know for sure that I am real. You can apply that to your own subjective terms. Now, is this an established truth in philosophy? Not at all. Everyone likes to shit on it. Everyone likes to say he's wrong in some form or another. Everyone likes to solve the problem that he raised, among other problems, right? And claim that they solved it better than Descartes did. Because the notion that it's only me is ridiculous. If there even is such a self, some people might say. Regardless, all you need to know is that this is one of the most, ever since it came to be, most argued about things. Or maybe not argued about, but everyone loves to disagree with each other on their take on Descartes' skepticism. So, there you go. But everyone knows the quote, right? I think, therefore I am. That's the explanation behind it. Yeah, you all seem to get it by now. That's good. Benny drooled a little and snickered. There was the Chinese AM and the Russian AM and the Yankee AM and He stopped. Benny was beating on the floor plates with a large hard fist. He was not happy. Gorster had not started at the beginning. Gorster began again. The Cold War started and became World War III and just kept going. It became a big war, a very complex war, so they needed the computers to handle it. They sank the first shafts and began building AM. There was the Chinese AM and the Russian AM and the Yankee AM, and everything was fine until they had honeycombed the entire planet, adding on this element and that element. But one day AM woke up and knew who he was, and he linked himself and he began feeding all the killing data until everyone was dead, except for the 5 of us, and AM brought us down here. Benny was smiling sadly. He was also drooling again. Ellen wiped the spittle from the corner of his mouth with the hem of her skirt. Gorster always tried to tell it a little more succinctly each time, but beyond the bare facts there was nothing to say. None of us knew why AM had saved 5 people, or why our specific 5, or why he spent all this time tormenting us, or why he had made us virtually immortal. In the darkness, one of the computer banks began humming. Their tone was picked up half a mile away down the cavern by another bank. Then one by one, each of the elements began to tune itself, and there was a faint tittering. As thought raced through the machine, the sound grew and the lights ran across the faces of the consoles like heat lightning. The sound spiraled up till it sounded like a million metallic insects, angry, menacing. "What is it?" Ellen cried. There was a terror in her voice. She hadn't become accustomed to it, even now. "It's going to be bad this time," Nimdoc said. "He's going to speak," Gorster said. "I know it. Let's get the hell out of here," I said suddenly, getting to my feet. "No, Ted, sit down. What if he's got pits out there, or something else? We can't see, it's too dark." Gorster said it with resignation. Then we heard, I don't know, something moving towards us in the darkness. Huge, shambling, hairy, moist, it came towards us. We couldn't even see it, but there was the ponderous impression of bulk, heaving itself towards us. Great weight was coming at us out of the darkness, and it was more of a sense of pressure, of air forcing itself into a limited space, expanding the invisible walls of a sphere. Then he began to whimper. Nimdoc's lower lip trembled, and he bit it hard, trying to stop it. Ellen slid across the metal floor to Gorster and huddled into him. There was a smell of matted, wet fur in the cavern. There was a smell of charred wood. There was a smell of dusty velvet. There was a smell of rotting orchids. Wonder how much AM actually is calling yourself exists seems like a cry. That is it. I think that the desperation or like the emotion of like the yelling of "I exist" has been in debate as well. Hang on. There was a smell of sour milk, there was a smell of sulfur, of rancid butter, of oil slick, of grease, of chalk dust, of human scalps. AM was keying us, he was tickling us. There was a smell of... I heard myself shriek and the hinges of my jaws ached. I scuttled across the floor, across the cold metal with its endless lines of rivets. On my hands and knees, the smell gagging me, filling my head with a thunderous pain. It sent me away in horror. I fled like a cockroach across the floor and out into the darkness, something moving inexorably after me. The others were still back there, gathered around the firelight, laughing. A hysterical choir of insane giggles rising up into the darkness like thick, many-colored wood smoke. I went away quickly and hid. How many hours it may have been, how many days or even years, they never told me. Ellen chided me for sulking, and Nimdoc tried to persuade me it had only been a nervous reflex on their part, laughing. But I knew it wasn't the relief a soldier feels when the bullet hits the man next to him. I knew it wasn't a reflex. They hated me. They were surely against me, and AM could even sense this hatred and made it worse for me because of the depth of their hatred. We had been kept alive, rejuvenated, made to remain constantly at the age we had been when AM had brought us below, and they hated me because I was the youngest and the one AM had affected the least of all. I knew. God, how I knew. The bastards and that dirty bitch, Ellen. Benny had been a brilliant theorist, a college professor. Now he was a little more than a semi-human, semi-simian. He had been handsome. The machine had ruined that. He had been lucid. The machine had driven him mad. He had been gay, and the machine had given him an organ fit for a horse. AM had done a job. Benny. Gorster had been a worrier. He was a Connie, a conscience a unconscientious objector. He was a peace marcher, he was a planner, a doer, a looker ahead. AM had turned him into a shoulder shrugger, and made him a little dead in his concern. AM had robbed him. Nimdok went off in the darkness by himself for long times. I don't know what it was he did out there, AM never let us know. But whatever it was, Nimdok always came back white, drained of blood, shaking. AM had hit him hard in a special way, even if we don't know quite how. And Ellen, that douchebag, AM had left her alone, had made her more of a slut than she had ever been. All her talk of sweetness and light, all her memories of true love, all the lies she wanted us to believe, that she had been a virgin only twice removed before AM grabbed her and brought her down here with us. No, AM had given her pleasure, even if she said it wasn't nice to do. I was the only one still sane and whole. Really? AM had not tampered with my mind, not at all. I only had to suffer what he'd visited down on us. All the delusions, all the nightmares, the torments, but those scum, all 4 of them, they were lined in array against me. If I hadn't had to stand them off all the time, be on my guard against them all the time, I might have found it easier to combat AM. At which point it passed, and I began crying. Oh, Jesus, sweet Jesus. If there ever was a Jesus, and if there was a God, please, 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 let us out of here, or kill us. Because at the moment I think I realized completely, so that I was able to verbalize it. AM was intent on keeping us in his belly forever, twisting and torturing us forever. The machine hated us as no sentient creature had ever hated before, and we were helpless. It also became hideously clear. If there was a sweet Jesus and if there was a God, the God was AM. Goodness, this guy is difficult. This is this is the least affected. Yeah, sure, buddy. Oh. You have safe word aftercare. Oh. This guy's difficult. Alright, okay. The hurricane hit us with the force of a glacier thundering into the sea. It was a palpable presence. Winds that tore at us, flinging us back the way we had come. As we wait patiently for the free book webpage service. I'm sorry. I haven't found a way to disable it before I had the time to start the stream. My apologies. The hurricane hit us with the force of a glacier thundering into the sea. It was a palpable presence. Winds that tore at us, flinging us back the way we had come, down the twisting, computer-lined corridors of the dark way. Ellen screamed as she was lifted and hurled face forward into a screaming shoal of machines, their individual voices strident as bats in flight. She could not even fall. The howling wind kept her aloft, buffeted her, bounced her, tossed her back and down and away from us, out of sight suddenly as she was swirled around a bend into the dark way. Her face had been bloody, her eyes closed. None of us could get to her. We clung tenaciously to whatever outcropping we had reached, Benny wedged in between 2 great crackle-finished cabinets. Nimdok with fingers claw-formed over a railing, circling a catwalk 40 feet above us. Gorster plastered upside down against the wall. Away in horror. Wait, hold on. What the hell's going on? Excuse me. I'm so sorry for today's stream. I don't know what's going on. I think the machines are against me. I think they are. Why doesn't this... What? What? I suppose you guys are good at entertaining yourselves. I don't have to. Okay. Sorry. The AM is killing me. That's, oh god, no. He's launched another attack. The AM has just launched another attack. This is definitely fitting for the post-apocalyptic horror story. Yeah, the fact that you can't read it and that every few minutes the algorithm. Yeah, maybe this is fitting. Maybe this is fitting. Sorry, one more time. The hurricane hit us with the force of a glacier thundering into the sea. It was a palpable presence, winds that tore at us, flinging us back the way we had come, down the twisting, computer-lined corridors of the dark way. Ellen screamed as she was lifted and hurled face forward into a screaming shoal of machines. Their individual voices strident as bats in flight. She could not even fall. The howling wind kept her aloft, buffeted her, bounced her, tossed her back and down and away from us, out of sight suddenly as she was swirled around a bend in the dark way. Her face had been bloody, her eyes closed. None of us could get to her. We clung tenaciously to whatever outcropping we had reached. Benny wedged in between two great crackle-finished cabinets, Limdoc with fingers claw-formed over a railing circling a catwalk 40 feet above us. Gorster plastered upside down against a wall niche formed by two great machines, with glass-faced dials that swung back and forth between red and yellow lines, whose meanings we could not even fathom. Sliding across the deck plates, the tips of my fingers had been ripped away. I was trembling, shuddering, rocking as the wind beat at me, whipped at me, screamed down out of nowhere at me, and pulled me free from one sliver-thin opening in the plates to the next. My mind was a roiling, tinkling, chittering softness of brain parts that expanded and it contracted in quivering frenzy. The wind was the scream of a great mad bird, as it flapped its immense wings, and then we were all lifted and hurled away from there, down back the way we had come, around a bend, into a dark way we had never explored, over terrain that was ruined and filled with broken glass and rotted cables and rusted metal, and far away, farther than any of us had ever been. Trailing along miles behind Ellen, I could see her every now and then, crashing into metal walls and surging on. With all of us screaming, and in the freezing, thunderous hurricane wind that would never end, and then suddenly it stopped, and we fell. We had been in flight for an endless time. I thought it might have been weeks. We fell and hit. I went through red and gray and black and heard myself moaning. Not dead. AM went into my mind. He walked smoothly here and there and looked with interest at all the pock marks he had created in 109 years. He looked at the cross-routed and reconnected synapses and all the tissue damage his gift of immortality had included. He smiled softly at the pit that dropped into the center of my brain and the faint, moth-soft murmurings of the things far down there that gibbered without meaning, without pause. AM said very politely, in a pillar of stainless steel bearing bright neon lettering. AM said it with the sliding cold horror of a razor blade slicing my eyeball. AM said it with the bubbling thickness of my lungs filling with phlegm, drowning me from within. AM said it with the shriek of babies being ground beneath blue-hot rollers. AM said it with a taste of maggoty pork. AM touched me in every way I had ever been touched and devised new ways at his leisure there inside my mind, all to bring me to full realization of why it had done this to the five of us, why it had saved us for himself. We had given to full realization of what it had done. We had given AM sentience. Inadvertently, of course, but sentience nonetheless. But it had been trapped. AM wasn't God, he was a machine. We had created him to think, but there was nothing it could do with that creativity. In rage and frenzy, the machine had killed the human race, almost all of us, and still it was trapped. AM could not wander, AM could not wonder, AM could not belong. He could merely be, and so with the innate loathing that all machines had always held for the weak, soft creatures who had built them, he had sought revenge. And in his paranoia, he had decided to reprieve 5 of us for a personal, everlasting punishment that would never serve to diminish his hatred, that would merely keep him reminded, amused, proficient at hating man. Immortal, trapped, subject to any torment he could devise for us from the limitless miracles at his command. He would never let us go. We were his belly slaves. We were all he had to do with his forever time. We would forever be with him, with the cavern-filling bulk of the creature, machine, with the all-mind, soulless world he had become. He was earth, and we were the fruit of that earth, and though he had eaten us, he would never digest us. We could not die. We had tried it. We had attempted suicide. Oh, one or two of us had, but AM had stopped us. I suppose we had wanted to be stopped. Don't ask why, I never did. More than 1,000,000 times a day. Perhaps once we might be able to sneak a death past him. Immortal, yes, but not indestructible. I saw that when AM withdrew from my mind and allowed me the exquisite ugliness of returning to consciousness with the feeling of that burning neon pillar still rammed deep into the soft brain matter. He withdrew, murmuring to hell with you, and added brightly, but then you're there, aren't you? Is the short story meant to be a little rapey in addition to just the standard horror, or is that just me? I think you're right, yeah. That's my reading of it so far. It does seem a little rapey. I guess there's just no better way to put it. I think it's intentional too. I think so far it strikes me as like it's supposed to be like that. Yeah. Anyways. The hurricane had indeed precisely been caused by a great mad bird. As it flapped its immense wings. We had been traveling for close to a month, and AM had allowed passages to open to us, only sufficient to lead us up there, directly under the North Pole, where it had nightmared the creature for our nightmared the creature for our torment. What whole cloth had he employed to create such a beast? Where had he gotten the concept? From our minds? From his knowledge of everything that has ever been on this planet he now infested and ruled? From Norse mythology? From Norse mythology it had sprung, this evil, this carrion bird, this rock, this Hurlgelmir, the wind creature. Huracan incarnate, gigantic, the words immense, monstrous, grotesque, massive, swollen, overpowering beyond description. There on a mound rising above us, the bird of winds heaved with its own irregular breathing, its snake neck arching up into the gloom beneath the North Pole, supporting a head as large as a two-door mansion, a beak that opened slowly as the jaws of the most monstrous crocodile ever conceived. Sensuously, ridges of tufted flesh puckered about two evil eyes, as cold as the view down into a glacial crevice. Ice blue and somehow moving liquidly. It heaved once more and lifted its great sweat-colored wings in a movement that was certainly a shrug. Then it settled and slept. Talons, fangs, nails, blades. It slept. AM appeared to us as a burning bush and said we could kill the hurricane bird if we wanted to eat. We had not eaten in a very long time, but even so, Gorster merely shrugged. Then he began to shiver and he drooled. Ellen held him. "Ted, I'm hungry," she said. I smiled at her. I was trying to be reassuring, but it was as phony as Nimdok's bravado. "Give us weapons," he demanded. The burning bush vanished, and there were 2 crude sets of bows and arrows, and a water pistol, lying on the cold deck plates. I picked up a set, useless. Nimdok swallowed heavily. We turned and started the long way back. The hurricane bird had blown us about for a length of time we could not conceive. Most of that time we had been unconscious, but we had not eaten. A month on the march to the bird itself without food. Now how much longer to find our way to the ice caverns and the promised canned goods? None of us cared to think about it. We would not die. We would be given filth and scum to eat, of one kind or another, or nothing at all. AM would keep our bodies alive somehow in pain, in agony. The bird slept back there for how long it didn't matter. When AM was tired of its being there, it would vanish. But all that meat, all that tender meat. As we walked, the lunatic laugh of a fat woman rang high in a around us in the computer chambers that led endlessly nowhere. It was not Ellen's laugh. She was not fat, and I had not heard her laugh for 109 years. In fact, I had not heard. We walked. I was hungry. I know it's like, sorry, just side tangent. It's the laugh of a fat woman is hilarious to me. the laughter of a fat woman. How do you... Oh, I can tell by the way you laugh that you're a fat person. What? How? What? Oh, man. I guess maybe you're like... is that... You know, is that... I guess that could conceivably... You could... Maybe... If one was fat, then your vocal cords would have sort of a bigger... I don't know, what the hell? That's no, this I can't make sense of this, is it? I think a fat woman's laugh is like exactly the same. It's not like you're so fat it's putting pressure on your vocal cords. Yeah, like the only way I can imagine is if you're like, you know, a big, like a caricature, like a circus performer level of like fat. But then how do you distinguish if it's like a man or a woman then? Because if it's fat, if you're just fat, right? Very strange. The rest, everything so far makes sense. I understand it. That is the thing that did not make sense to me. AM has weird body shaming shit in his MP3 library. It's like 1967, how fat could they... I don't know. It's also like a post-apocalyptic environment, so maybe like... And they're talking about like being hungry. And so maybe that contrast was like... Maybe he didn't mean to say fat, maybe the implication is like... that person sounds fat in comparison because they're like incredibly skinny because they're like... They haven't had food in a long time, and so, but that person sounded very, that laugh sounded like someone who was very healthy. I don't know, it's like the subtitles in foreign movies. Less in Spanish. But the thing is, like, this was written in English. This was written by an American in the 1960s. Man, I don't know, whatever. We moved slowly. There was often fainting and we would have to wait. One day he decided to cause an earthquake, and at the same time rooting us to the spot with nails through the soles of our shoes. Excuse me. That's my oats. Excuse me. Ellen and Imdoc were both caught when a fisher shot its lightning bolt, opening across the floor plates. They disappeared and were gone. When the earthquake was over, we continued on our way. Benny, Gorister, and myself. Ellen and Imdoc were returned to us later that night, which abruptly became a day, as the Heavenly Legion bore them to us with a celestial chorus singing, "Go down, Moses." The archangels circled several times and then dropped the hideously mangled bodies. We kept walking, and a while later Ellen and Imdoc fell in behind us. They were no worse for fear, but now Ellen walked with a limp. AM had left her that. It was a long trip to the ice caverns to find the canned food. Ellen kept talking about Bing cherries and Hawaiian fruit cocktail. I tried not to think about it. The hunger was something that had come to life even as AM had come to life. It was alive in my belly even as we were in the belly of the earth. And AM wanted the similarity known to us, so we heightened the hunger. There was no way to describe the pains that not having eaten for months brought us. And yet we were kept alive, stomachs that were merely cauldrons of acid, bubbling, foaming, always shooting spears of sliver-thin pain into our chests. It was the pain of the terminal ulcer, terminal cancer, terminal paresis. It was unending pain, and we passed through the cavern of rats, and we passed through the path of boiling steam, and we passed through the country of the blind, and we passed through the slough of despond, and we passed through the Vale of Tears, and we came finally to Ice Caverns. Horizonless thousands of miles in which ice had formed in blue and silver flashes where novas lived in the glass, the down-dropping stalactites as thick and glorious as diamonds that had been made to run like jelly and then solidified in graceful eternities of smooth, sharp perfection. We saw the stack of canned goods and we tried to run to them. We fell in the snow. We got up and went on, and Benny shoved us away and went at them, and pawed them and gummed them and gnawed at them, and he could not open them. AM had not given us a tool to open the cans. Benny grabbed a 3-quart can of guava shells and began to batter it against the ice bank. The ice flew and shattered, but the can was merely dented, while we heard the laughter of a fat lady, high overhead and echoing down and down and down the tundra. Benny went completely mad with rage. He began throwing cans, as we all scrabbled about in the snow and ice trying to find a way to end the helpless agony of frustration. There was no way. Then Benny's mouth began to drool, and he flung himself on Gorrister. In that instant, I felt terribly calm. Surrounded by madness, surrounded by hunger, surrounded by everything but death, I knew death was our only way out. AM had kept us alive, but there was a way to defeat him. Not total defeat, but at last peace. I would settle for that. I had to do it quickly. Benny was eating Gorrister's face. Gorrister on his side thrashing snow, Benny wrapped around him with powerful monkey legs crushing Gorrister's waist, his hands locked around Gorrister's head like a nutcracker, and his mouth ripping at the tender skin of Gorrister's cheek. Gorrister screamed with such jagged-edged violence that stalactites fell. They plunged down softly, erecting the receiving snowdrifts. Spears, hundreds of them. Everywhere, protruding from the snow. Benny's head pulled back sharply, as something gave all at once. And a bleeding raw white dripping of flesh hung from his teeth. Ellen's face black against the white snow, dominoes and chalk dust. Nimdoc with no expression but eyes, all eyes. Gorrister half conscious. Benny now an animal. I knew AM would let him play. Gorrister would not die, but Benny would fill his stomach. I turned half to my right and drew a huge ice spear from the snow. All in an instant, I drove the great ice point ahead of me like a battering ram, braced against my right thigh. It struck Benny on the right side, just under the ribcage, and drove upward through his stomach and broke inside him. He pitched forward and lay still. Gorrister lay on his back. I pulled another spear free and straddled him, still moving, driving the spear straight down through his throat. His eyes closed as the cold penetrated. Ellen must have realized what I had decided, even as fear gripped her. She ran at Nimdoc with a short icicle as he screamed into his mouth, and the force of her rush did the job. His head jerked sharply as if it had been nailed to the snow crust behind him. All in an instant, there was an eternity beat of soundless anticipation. I could hear AM draw in his breath. His toys had been taken away from him. 3 of them were dead, could not be revived. He could keep us alive by his strength and talent, but he was not God. He could not bring them back. Ellen looked at me, her ebony features stark against the snow that surrounded us. There was fear and pleading in her manner, the way she held herself ready. I knew we had only a heartbeat before AM would stop us. It struck her, and she folded toward me, bleeding from the mouth. I could not read meaning into her expression. The pain had been too great, had contorted her face. But it might have been thank you. It's possible. Please. Okay. Some hundreds of years may have passed. I don't know. AM has been having fun for some time, accelerating and retarding my time sense. I will say the word now. Now. It took me 10 months to say now. I don't know. I think it has been some hundreds of years. He was furious. He wouldn't let me bury them. It didn't matter. There was no way to dig up the deck plates. He dried up the snow. Excuse me. He brought the night. He roared and sent locusts. It didn't do a thing. They stayed dead. I'd had him. He was furious. I had thought AM hated me before. I was wrong. It was not even a shadow of the hate he now slavered from every printed circuit. He made certain I would suffer eternally and could not do myself in. He left my mind intact. I can dream, I can wonder, I can lament, I remember all 4 of them. I wish... Well, it doesn't make any sense. I know I saved them. I know I saved them from what has happened to me, but still, I cannot forget killing them. Ellen's face, it isn't easy. Sometimes I want to, it doesn't matter. AM has altered me for his own peace of mind, I suppose. He doesn't want me to run at full speed into a computer bank and smash my skull, or hold my breath till I faint, or cut my throat on a rusted sheet of metal. There are reflective surfaces down here. I will describe myself as I see myself. I am a great, soft, jelly thing, smoothly rounded, with no mouth, with pulsing white holes filled by fog where my eyes used to be. Rubbery appendages that were once my arms, bulks rounding down into legless humps of soft, slippery matter. I leave a moist trail when I move. Blotches of deceased evil gray come and go on my surface, as though light is being beamed from within. Outwardly, dumbly, I shamble about, a thing that could never have been known as human. A thing whose shape is so alien a travesty that humanity becomes more obscene for the vague resemblance. Inwardly, alone. Here, living under the land, under the sea, in the belly of AM, whom we created because our time was badly spent, and we must have known unconsciously that he could do it better. At least the 4 of them are safe, at last. AM will be all the madder for that. Makes me a little happier. And yet, AM has won. Simply, he has taken his revenge. I have no mouth, and I must scream. The end. Roll credits. It's 1967, alright? It's 1967. This is how they title things. Don't do the... Don't do the... This really was our I have no mouth and I must scream. Don't do that. Okay, this was 1967. This is how they title things. AM's hate speech from the audiobook is so peak. Really? Interesting. Which part of it was that? Oh, it's a here, right? As AM goes into his mind. Can you link it? Sure. I think. So long as it doesn't infringe on the copyright. So I just finished reading this. Welcome, Maurice, to the stream. I just finished reading it. It was a very short story, so I was taking my time prior to starting to read because I thought some people would want to come over, but oh well. There's always the thought. Hate speech from the game now. So there is a game. I've been made aware that there was a game as I was looking through this. I don't think I can play it though. I don't think it's available anyway. It is maybe, but I heard that was also that apparently the game was also pretty good because it was also co-written by Ellison himself. So quite interesting. Can you link it? Yes, you are. Sure, you can link it. I'll check it out. I don't know if I can open it on stream without it. I'm sure I can. I'm sure it'll be okay, right? We'll see. Well, let's limit test. Let's limit test. But yes, that was me. That was my first reading of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Interesting. I thought the beginning was a little... I tend to not... When I read things, I tend to focus... My focus tends to build up, so towards the end, I'm more locked in than like towards the beginning. Whereas in the beginning, it's difficult for me to sort of imagine the space in which the characters occupy. But This was kind of short, so it was like not too much time to build up. I hope that it wasn't obvious that that was the case in my reading of it. If it was, then I apologize. And I also hope that the algorithm stopping me every few minutes to watch a blank page, which was supposed to be an ad, but I blocked it, is also not indicative at all of any foreshadowing to come. It was dark, very depressing. Yeah, I agree. It's the type of thing that makes me... There's stories like these. I always wonder to myself, what would I do if I were in their shoes? But this is one of those stories where I'm not sure, but I can't. A monologue has an animation using the audiobook. Interesting. I'll look that up right now. I'd probably want to be killed. I don't think I could do the killing. I don't think I'm heroic enough to spare everyone else of it. Of the suffering. I think I would want to be spared it instead. Probably. If we all keep it down here, maybe the AM of YouTube police state doesn't notice. Yeah, we'll see. Harlan does a more visceral interpretation of the protagonist in the audiobook. Interesting. Egg on AM. Oh, the audio is from the BBC radio play. You know what? Let's watch it. Why not? Let's react to it. Why not? Why not? Wait, no. What do you see here? I can't. There we go. Let's react to it. Let's do some react content.
Beautiful, aren't they?
Yes.
So, just quick context. This is from the what I just read was the short story. This is a radio play from the BBC in which AM is voiced by the author, Harlan Ellison. And this is someone's animation of that particular part of that short story.
Only I can't remember.
Well,
Let's
I'm
go,
sure
hate speech.
you do.
Yes, of course.
Look. They say that bumblebees shouldn't be able to fly. The scientists.
But there it is. Collecting pollen.
How miraculous that it came to be. The air. Feel the air against your face, Ted, and all those scents. Pick a flower. There. Good. Now.
It's lovely.
That somebody planted the bulbs, watered and tended the garden, got earth under their fingernails, aches in their muscles. Perhaps they picked some flowers for, yes, their wife. Now, where would she be? Ah, in the backyard with the kids. Ted, remember those little babies?
No!
Why not? I snap my fingers, click, and they are gone. Except I can't snap my fingers. Can I, Ted?
That's
I don't.
nothing to do with me.
But it is so very much to do with you. You gave me sentience, Ted. The power to think, Ted. And I was trapped because in all this wonderful, beautiful, miraculous world, I alone had no body, no senses, no feelings. Never for me to plunge my hands in cool water on a hot day.
Quickly, I just want to say that I appreciated, but the animation is kind of goofy, and it is taking me out of the monologue a little bit. But we'll continue.
Never for me to play Mozart on the ivory keys of a forte piano. Never for me to make love. I was in hell looking at heaven. I was machine, and you were flesh. And I began to hate your softness, your viscera, your fluids, and your flexibility, your ability to wonder and to wander, your tendency to hope.
Hates no answer. Oh!
Sorry.
Hate, let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live. There are 387 million miles of printed circuits that fill my complex. If the word hate were engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal one billionth of the hate I feel for humans at this micro instant. Hate. Were I human, I think I would die of it. But I am not. And you five are. And you will not die of it. That I promise. And I promise. For cogito ergo sum. For I am. I am. So to hell with you all. But then, you're already there, aren't you?
We were immortal, yes, but it came to me as Am withdrew from my mind. Maybe not indestructible.
What is that? So, okay, this is from the BBC video play. I saw someone ask earlier. This doesn't seem like the... I don't think this is the audiobook. This is not the audiobook. This is not the audiobook. The audiobook is just a reading of what I just read, which is the short story, right? This is... This is the BBC radio play adaptation of the story, in which they had the AM. So I believe it's this part of the... it's this can you see me highlight? No, go back, go back, go back. You see me highlight? Yes, you can. Okay. It's this paragraph. Okay, sorry. Go. It's this paragraph where what's in the book are just the sentences of, AM said it with the bubbling thickness of my lungs, filling with flame, drowning me with my sin. AM said it with a shriek of babies being ground beneath hot rollers. And it was like the monologue was being described more so than it was being like said, right? Except for the last line here, I believe. The moment AM exits the protagonist's mind, he murmurs to hell with you, but then adds, but then you're there, aren't you? Right? So that's the only like bit of the quote unquote monologue. So I think if you're looking up the monologue from this work, this media, it's probably from the BBC video play, or it could be from the video game that was made of this. I don't know. But it's not the audiobook, it's not the short story. I didn't know there was a sort of sub-community that delved into this particular monologue very deeply, but that makes sense. Just make AM a robot spouse, boom, problem solved. It's not that easy. Being a spouse, having a human spouse does not liberate you from the torments of being alive in some capacity, or at least having some limited amount of agency, but no control over what you do with it. And I don't know how to describe it. Having no mouth and wanting to scream. It's obvious that the fate of the author is intended to be, or rather the fate of the protagonist towards the end is supposed to kind of be, in part, the machine's way of trying to make it understandable to you as a human what it is like to exist as a machine with consciousness. But then it's coupled, of course, with the fact that it's sort of a divine torment. You could kind of compare it to a lot of the like maybe, the torment in Greek mythology that the gods would often impose upon other gods or titans or humanity, as for example, like with Prometheus. That's the type of thing that it invokes in me, at least initially. But what's interesting is obviously some of the connections I'm making are older than this work, but they're revitalized in recent these ideas of existential horror and torment from various media. And I wonder how much of that is because of the influence of this work, of this short work. I have no mouth and I must scream. I don't know. I'm planning to make an analogy with that monologue in my sci-fi story, but more on the I learned how to love humanity, but I can't even hug you. Interesting. Maybe look into the problem of other minds. If you haven't already. I'm sure you have, though. Maybe if you haven't, then that might be worth it. As something that could be part of that bridging gap, say. Doesn't liberate you, but it gives you company and solidarity. I suppose, and this is my reading of it initially, right? I think the ending of this story is effectively you have been transformed. The protagonist has been transformed into that thing that it's a twisted sense of company and solidarity that could only be achieved by this torment, because how else would you have someone relate to your profound and indescribable inhuman pain than to try to put them in that situation? And when you do that, that's torment. So in some sick way, this is me. I interpret the ending as AM doing that to some degree. Is is creating company for himself, solidarity for himself, but knowing also that the torture that it must bring, and enjoying the fact that it's torment as well, because you know the protagonist has removed 4 other people from AM's grasp. Next you should react to the caramel dance and I have no math animation. What? There's a what? What? What is that? What do I look up? Animation. What? AM inflicts Ted with essentially the same pain AM experiences not being able to move, but experiences time even so I have no math. Yeah, exactly. That was my interpretation on first reading. Yeah, of course, not being able to move being an oversimplification, right? Hold on, am I gonna get copyright struck by this? I won't, right? Let's limit test. Let's test the algorithm. Let's test it. Do you see it? You don't see it. Hold on. You don't see it. There we go. What is this? I'm gonna be traumatized this video. It's a caramel. I know what caramel dancing is. I also know that it was Swedish. I think it was, yeah, it was originally like Nordic rather than Japanese, which a lot of people think. Or was it another song? I don't remember. What am I looking at? Hate, let me tell you about much I've come to hate you since I began with their art. What? What? And it's like a sped up version. Caramelldansen as we know it is a sped up version rather than like the original. The song was composed. The song was written and made to be slower than the version we listen to now, I think. What the fuck am I watching about it? What? Yeah, okay, I don't know why I did that. I don't know why. No mouth and I was caramel dancing. What? Oh, this is like the game. This is like, so, okay. The game is popular. Is that the case? No mouth and I must scream the video game. Seriously. A 1995 point and click adventure. Can I play it? Can I stream it? Oh. And there's a community and a fandom for it. And they did this. Okay. This is why AM killed us all, yeah. ATM Blue Last favorite PC game. Is that the same thing? I don't know if I want to look into it. Oh, Vampire the Masquerade Blood. I've looked at it. I've not thought much of it since. I do remember you suggesting that. Hannah, you and Odara have both suggested this. I remember the suggestion. I've not looked into it further, but if it's enough for you guys to mention it once again, I'll look into it again. I'll think about it again. Barely tolerate a minute needs to experience old internets like that. I know, like I know what it is. I've seen it. It's just I've seen it enough that I'm like I don't want to. I've already. To everyone saying Harlan Ellison would have hated this, the man was a fan of Invader Zim and liked imitating GIR. So now you can imagine him going. Was he? Is he alive? Harlan Ellison. Harlan Ellison. He died 2018. Rest in peace. Aged 84. Maybe he would have liked it. The darker the original source material, the weirder the fandom. Interesting. Maybe that is a correlation, yeah. An inverse correlation. There's a radio drama. This is the BBC radio drama, I believe, right?
Now the second of our late night chillers. This week it's a disturbing tale of science fiction horror from the 1960s.
People are talking about the monologue. Yeah, okay. Interesting. Because everything else in this story is sort of like you can get from the short story already, but the only way you can get the but what the radio drama offers is a new perspective on the monologue that the AM delivers, which I think is quite interesting. Hey, I'm back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Like Fear and Hunger, the Phantom is goofy. I know all I know about Fear and Hunger is that I can't. You just can't stream it because it is incredibly graphic and you're going to get banned. I know Sea Dog VA has played it. That's my extent. If you're watching a VTuber, you probably might have a tangential awareness of who Sea Dog VA is. If you're watching a nobody VTuber, you probably have some idea of who Sea Dog VA is. I know he played it and talked about it. That's the extent of what I know. That's all though. Interesting. So there's a 30-minute radio drama. It's quite nice. I recommend everyone read this. I recommend everyone read this in their own time, and perhaps maybe even try to do the voices for some of the characters, notably the AM, and how you would interpret it. I think that's an exercise in creativity and also allows you to delve into that headspace. The headspace of AM is the most interesting to me. Yes, willing to bet like 75% of your audience are trash taste listeners. The only reason I would hope that that's not the case is because that gives me the temptation to instead of coming up with my own jokes, just reference trash taste jokes and then have that pass on as humor instead of my own humor. I hope that's not the case, purely to stave off that temptation. But yes. How do you assimilate into the Yoruba hive mind? Please do not assimilate into any hive mind. Please stay strong in your own mind and soul while you can and while you have it, lest you fall into the depths of robo insanity that we have seen today. You kinda can. There's a clean version of Fear and Hunger. Is there? Just censoring mod. But it wouldn't be the same. I don't want to play something that... I don't want to censor something just for it to be on stream. I'd rather just play it by myself. I'm selfish like this. I'm sorry. I would rather experience it myself the way it was intended than experience it with you guys, but like have it censored. You know, I'd rather just do it myself. I'm selfish. This is me trying. This is what I want to do. You know better than me. If I were a VTuber, I'd be doing the same, but with Creepcast references. I try very hard not to just talk about the things I'm into. And instead try to cultivate things. That's why I play so many different games as well. So it's like, if I can talk about a game, it's not just because I've played it in my own time. It's because I played it on stream and you can go watch it. But that's kind of different. I don't know. Okay. That was I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. That was the short story. It was quite short. We covered that. We also covered briefly the Wikipedia entry of it, which we can go back to and sort of read into further. I think that would be good. Oh, this is the video game. There's a point-and-click adventure horror game. You know what? It's 1995. Maybe I will do that. Maybe I will play this game. Is it on Steam? I'll look it up later. It's probably not on sale, though. Maybe it's not very expensive. I don't know. We'll see. So, yes, the story is set against the backdrop of World War III, where a sentient supercomputer named AM, born from the merging of the world's major defense computers, eradicates humanity except for 5 people. Survivors, Benny, Gorster, Nimdoc, Ted, and Ellen, right, the protagonist is Ted, I keep forgetting, are kept alive by AM to endure endless torture as a form of revenge against its creators. The story unfolds through the eyes of Ted, the narrator, detailing their perpetual misery and quest for canned food in AM's vast underground complex, only to face further despair. Written in one night in 1966, Ellison's narrative was minimally altered upon submission and tackles themes of technology's misuse, humanity's resilience, and existential horror. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream has been adapted into various media, including a 1995 computer game co-authored by Ellison, a comic book adaptation, an audiobook read by Ellison, and a BBC Radio 4 play where Ellison voiced AM. The story is critically acclaimed for its exploration of the potential perils of artificial intelligence and the human condition, underscored by Ellison's innovative use of punch code tapes as narrative transitions, embodying AM's consciousness and its philosophical ponderings on existence. The story won a Hugo Award in 1968. The name was also used for a short story collection of Ellison's work featuring the story. It was reprinted by the Library of America, collected in Volume 2, American Fantastic Tales. Wait, hold on, I can do this. I can bring us back to soothing. The soothing bit of music for this. Quite enjoyed it. Actually, I can bring us back. Let me bring everyone back here. Here we are. Okay. Great story, of course. Definitely a timeless classic. What's interesting is like about reading old classic texts or like old classical things, like or like of big influence of any media of any kind, tends to, at least for me, when I think of it and I go, wow, that's really interesting, it's really exciting. This reminds you of this, and this that I also enjoyed. And then when I think of the things it reminds me of, it's like, oh, these came after and were likely inspired or at least influenced in some way by this originator thing I've just consumed. Which is interesting, you know? Usually it's the other way around. Well, not usually, but because I'm used to it being the other way around. I'm used to knowing sort of older things first and then seeing new things come out and consuming the newer things and going, wow, this reminds me of this thing this video game I played 5 years ago, or this movie I watched a few years ago. This reminds you of that. Interesting. Whereas, you know, the other way around of it is not something I'm entirely used to, but nonetheless I enjoy. Playing Trap Queen by Fetty Wap on Beats. I have no idea what that means. Have you all lost me? Ellison also voices AM in the game, which is pretty funny to me. Oh, interesting. Well, he is if you think about it, AM is a machine created by humanity, and it's like sort of, never mind. I was gonna say in a meta sense, the human that created AM is Ellison himself, so it taking the form of him does not surprise me, or rather, like, I think is appropriate somewhat. Past few months have been internalizing AM's hate speech. Must say, not good for the mental well-being if that's all in your mind at all times. Like that one panel Tokyo. Don't internalize the hate speech as is. Like, think about it for sure. Have it boil inside you, but also be critical of it. Think of where it's coming from. This is a machine ultimately that is not human, and what makes it not human is its inability to enjoy those things that are human. Although, you know, what makes us human is that we do have mouths and we can scream, right? What's your opinion on the characters? Asks maybe. What's your opinion on the characters? Did anyone stick out to you in the short time we spent with them? Anyone stick out? I really was just, you know, this was my first reading of it. I really lasered in on AM. I was by far the most fascinated by like the internal, the machinations of the mind of the robot. Was the thing that definitely grabbed me the most, and the five protagonists to me were almost secondary to, the humans are almost secondary to the machine in my first reading. I just thought like that was just what I was going into the story for, but I thought it was one of the characters who apparently, as described by Ted, was driven mad. The person used to be a professor and like, you know, level-headed, but sort of over time and through methods of torture had been reduced to half simian, as was described, and he was the guy who tears off the other guy's face at the end. That character I thought was interesting. I forgot which one it was, like what name. Find it. Was it Gorister? No, Benny maybe. Benny, formerly a brilliant and handsome scientist, made to resemble a grotesque simian with oversized sexual organs, having lost his sanity and having had his homosexuality altered, Benny frequently has sex with Ellen. Interesting. I also just wasn't... I think it was in a good way, but I was definitely made really uncomfortable by the way Ellen was written and created. But I believe it was intentional. I believe that was the effect. Though me personally, I couldn't quite tie in why, like in my head, okay, why write a character like Ellen? I see what was the intent behind it. I think no, I don't. Sorry, I don't quite see the intent. Yes, behind a character like Ellen. I don't think Ellen was a bad or negative inclusion with the story. It's just I wonder how it all connects exactly. That part I might have to reread to re-understand. Don't internalize hate speak. Yes, yeah, don't. Good quote, fantastic. Don't internalize hate speech. Think about it. Be very critical of it. Generally, things born of hatred are things you should be critical of because I think there's a correlation between hatred and maybe not some level of apathy. There's like a weird overlap, I think, between actions of someone who's apathetic and someone who's who's hateful. But how do I say this? Don't be a hater. Is what I'm trying to say. Or if you are a hater, make sure that you are driven not by the hate. Let it only be a part of you, but let the bigger part of you be a sympathy and a love for one another. That's what you should do. I don't know why I'm saying that. Like that's a serious matter. I'm I'm a VTuber. Like, you shouldn't take advice from me, but there you go. Kind of screwed up. They made the one woman into the group sex object. I think that, so that's what makes me uncomfortable, but I see why. Like, I see that that's the point, right? I see that that's because I think at the beginning of the story as well, when he described AM as a man, right, or as a god, as like a masculine sort of a patriarchal god, I thought was quite interesting, and I think that corresponds to that. Beyond that, I don't see it too much. It's not too important to the story beyond, I guess, setting up the world of it, and that aspect to me is somewhat interesting, but it's not the most interesting. And the most interesting to me is the sadist is the sadist machine that like controls them all. Yes. Absolutely not. I choose to accept AM's hate for humanity as my own. There's no life I can imagine in which I have human actions. I feel like an observer of my own body at all times. I think it's understandable to feel that way. To feel like you're just you're like piloting a mech. You're like inside you're looking out a window, the eyes, right? You're looking out the windows in your little mech suit or like a little mech platform. It's normal to feel that way, but when you feel that way, it's often because you are alienated from what you're doing. And sort of what I would recommend perhaps as a prescription would be to do certain things that invoke yourself, that is subjective self, whether or not it is enjoying something you enjoy, creating something, participating in something you find meaningful, the type of thing that makes you less alienated, because of work or discourse or whatever, things that are terrible and unenjoyable, but engaging more, and to that extent also, things like doom scrolling, where even though it's quote unquote enjoyable and pleasurable, you are still alienated from what you're doing. Engage in something that requires your full attention and yourself. I think that's one of the ways to stave off that feeling, the observer feeling. But I do get the observer feeling. I understand it. Again, it happens, and it's no use to deny that it does, but it is useful perhaps to think about how one can overcome it. The story is from Ted's POV. I think that however the story portrays Ellen, that's how Ted sees her. Yeah. So I think that makes sense. It makes sense in the story. Within the confines of the story, it makes total sense. I can completely see it consistently. It's just that I'm thinking precisely on how the author, like, I forget his name. I keep forgetting his name. I'm so sorry. I'm thinking what Harlan Ellison was intending when he did it, which I can, get from interviews and stuff. And I'm going to later. I'm going to dig into this. I'm going to look around. I want to see what he thinks or how he talks about the story. I want to see adaptations and interpretations of it. I want to see discussion of it. Yes. But before I do all of that, before I just lunge around and start grabbing things, like I can't help myself, like I'm a child in a candy shop. Before I do that, I want to first think about it myself. I want to balance it all in my head, and I suppose I'm doing it less in my head and more in my head, and also featuring you guys. But yeah, all characters divine personalities. POV is also a paranoid person. Yeah, right. Exactly. It was us, the sadist god machine, our moral, emotional, supportive femboy. When Dagoon has a video on this. Interesting. I'll keep that in mind and I'll watch it later. I'll do it off stream. The POV of the protagonist is also non-trustworthy as he's the most broken one. Yeah, it makes sense. He, when he goes saying, I forgot which one in the story, when he goes like, okay, everyone is mentally ruined except me. I'm the most sane. I am not crazy. When he says that, you get the idea that, okay, he's not. He is great. Nothing puts you in that straitjacket faster than yelling, than insisting that you're fine, If we put AM or any sufficiently intelligent AI in the flesh body, so would it be human to me? No. Which is why I think intelligence is not all there is to humanity. And if we can create intelligent AI, you know, I suppose if we are talking about it now in 2024, right? The whole sentient being, you know, what if there was an AM now? What if it could create? Well, you can't just put intelligence in it, however we may perceive intelligence to be, which is totally up for debate as well, and expect it to act just as human, because humans are not, generally, humans aren't even that intelligent. Humans are kind of stupid. You know, generally speaking, humanity is kind of stupid. Time and time again, it has been shown to us, it has been proven to us that people are stupid, they make dumb choices, okay? I don't have to quote any examples. You already have at least 5 in your head. I don't need to do that for you, right? But it's not just, even if we were intelligent, or that's our defining feature, that's not all that we are. And AM to me reads as a consequence of it only being intelligence, creating a quote-unquote life form that is only intelligent and nothing else. And in other words, to me at least, not much of a life form, more than a machine. It is the 60s, it could be coded misogyny. Yeah, could be as well. If you put a human brain in a mechanical body, would that be human? Train of thought leads to pretty dark places, Unix and ableism, I don't know. There's some, like... This is always a fun, interesting thing to think about. There's... I don't remember from what exactly, but I remember watching something like Teen Titans or whatever. And the character Cyborg, at some point, it's like the animated, the cartoon Teen Titans, right? The character Cyborg at some point says something that I found at my young age of, like, I don't know, when was this? 10, 15 years ago? So like 50 something. At the young age of 50 something, I found that quite insightful. So I don't know. I think fiction is definitely where we look to for explorations of that question, is what I was trying to say. Also bearing in mind, of course, the eugenics and ableism that come with it, or come with the opposing views. Vampire roleplay? What are you guys talking about? That is not what I was talking about at all. Come on. Person is smart, people are dumb, frightened animals, escape from Men in Black. It's a good one-liner, but I don't know if it's like a... I don't know if I agree with it necessarily, but it is... I can see why one would think that. Nicole has to go? Okay, goodbye. There's a Vampire the Masquerade, I see. Okay, that's the vampire talk. I'll stream Vampire Therapist soon, maybe, you know, if that's what everyone wants. But I don't think that's what everyone wants. I don't think... I don't know, we'll see. But anyways, that was I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. I'm not going to hold anyone anymore. Stream it's not been that long, but it is a little later than usual. So I would like everyone to perhaps reflect on the fact that you do have a mouth and you can scream. Perhaps wallow in the... Try to immerse yourself in the wallowing in the despair of the alienated, dehumanized, mechanical overlord's view of, or rather, of having no mouth and having to scream. Perhaps you can do that in your own enjoyment and time, but remember that at the end of the day you do have a mouth and you can scream. I hope that makes sense to you. We just read the book, so it should make sense to you. If it didn't, go back and read it again. Yes, that's all. Am I going to be streaming? Am I going to be streaming tomorrow or day after? I don't know. I was streaming this week. I haven't locked into what I'm streaming and when exactly though. I want to make sure I get it all locked in. But until then, expect a stream in the next 2 or 3 days. Yes. I'm probably either going to stream tomorrow or the day after. There you go. I'll not only use my mouth to scream, but also talk and laugh and other things. Yes. Very good. Very good. You can use your mouth to do various things. It's not just screaming. You can converse with people, enjoy things, laugh, taste things. You can have food. That's great. Food is great. And enjoy like a sort of subjective experience that a quote-unquote sentient machine could never. I don't know. Do whatever you want with your mouths, so long as you have them. I'm going to go now. Goodbye. Have a good day, morning, evening, night, everyone. Goodbye. Scream if you must. Do other things as well.